Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com. Good evening and welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight. Breaking today, the Supreme Court unanimously upholds the rule of law and the U.S. Constitution, much to the consternation of a lot of leftists. Even the liberal justices ruled unanimously that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is not self-executing. Congress has to legislate in order for President Trump to be kicked off the ballot. So this is what the Supreme Court said in part. This is this last paragraph here at the bottom of your screen. Because the Constitution makes Congress, rather than the states, responsible for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates, we reverse. Of course, they're talking about the Colorado Supreme Court opinion that did have Trump kicked off the ballot ahead of tomorrow, Super Tuesday. So President Trump has briefly reacted initially on the Howie Carr show, and then he held a larger press conference, but this is part of his reaction. Listen to this.
I was very honored by a 9-0 vote. And this is for future presidents. This is not for me. This is for future presidents, all presidents. And the next thing coming up, I think, which will be of equal importance, will be immunity, because the president has to have immunity or they won't be able to function. They'll be ceremonial. So I think that's a very important one coming up. And but this was a very big decision. It was a great decision. I heard very well reasoned.
Joining me now is Jordan Sekulow, who is with the ACLJ, the American Center for Law and Justice. And Jordan, this is an absolutely excellent day for the rule of law, the U.S. Constitution, and President Trump is right. It's not just about him, it's about all future presidents.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering throughout all this process, Jen. I felt very good about where this case would come down. I didn't know if it'd get 9-0, but I thought we'd even likely get 7-2, 8-1 based off the oral argument, some of the questions made by some of the liberal justices. But I think what we got instead was, again, 9 justices agree that the 14th Amendment, Section 3, cannot be implemented randomly by states, that there's got to be some kind of action taken by Congress defining that role before a state can act. So, again, Congress can act to enact legislation that might deliver more power, but at this time, it is not up to a Secretary of State here, a court here, or some other election official over there to decide who does or does not get to run based off of the language of the 14th Amendment, Section 3. It kind of puts it back to, again, these states have the rules of the way to conduct their elections. They are allowed to put in place requirements to be on the ballot. For instance, the constitutional requirements, and then sometimes you have to have a number of signatures or fees. That's okay. The court's said those are not like fundamental rights issues. That's where the states get to decide. Where they don't get to decide is whether or not a something that hasn't been fully adjudicated or defined by Congress in a constitutional provision, that they could unilaterally take someone off the ballot. And I just want to make it clear, it was not just the 6 conservative or right-leaning justices on the Supreme Court, but all 3 liberal justices, including Judge Jackson, the most recent appointee from President Biden, who agreed that the states do not have a role.
Yeah, I was frankly really surprised that it was 9-0. And I know a lot of people, including Jay Sekulow, your father, that predicted 9-0. And, he's older and wiser than me, but I was very grateful to see that even the leftists on the Supreme Court were not moved by the partisan politics or that this concerned Trump. They simply interpreted the U.S. Constitution as it should be. And so there have been a lot of questions now today, Jordan Sekulow, with, what about President Trump's 91 indictments? If he's convicted on any of those, would that change the outcome, or could that be something that now a Secretary of State could use and say, aha, well, look, we're going to go ahead and try to exclude him on the ballot because of that type of conviction?
No, again, those are different charges, and so here it's insurrection. So far he and Jack Smith, who again is probably rethinking whether he wanted to fast track this one, and all these different cases that have gone forward, like the immunity case, which he's fast tracked, is insurrection or not. So no cases currently pending right now in any criminal matters have put at issue whether or not President Trump committed insurrection. So these other cases, win or lose, will not enable a state to come in and take him off the ballot, or really what they would do in even some states is say, even if you wrote him in, not count your vote. So I think people can be very confident in the primary if they haven't yet voted, and especially a lot of us on Super Tuesday tomorrow, and in the general election, that if President Trump is ultimately the choice they make in one of those elections, that their vote absolutely will be counted, and that their state has no way of taking him off the ballot.
Yeah, and I agree with that analysis that even if there is a conviction on any one or more of the 91 counts under those indictments, that still would not disqualify or remove President Trump from the ballot. That still could have an impact as we head to November, especially when the Supreme Court hears and then weighs in on the presidential immunity issue. But how significant overall is this just for the rule of law, Jordan? Because we saw a lot of the leftists that were also melting down, not just about the political optics, but they were suggesting, Keith Olbermann was one who tweeted after the Supreme Court's opinion that the Supreme Court should be disbanded because, this is just totally terrible for democracy. Ridiculous.
It's great for democracy because, again, the American people, through the primary process or a caucus process, if they want to, and not the majority of Americans don't, but if they want to, can go through and be part of the process that chooses who will be the nominees for president of the United States. So it's more, how more American can you get than that? And then you decide, okay, who wins that? And then they become the nominee of a party or an independent, and that can go that route as well. And then you get to decide yet again, are you going to vote for them to be president of the United States? I don't understand. What is so bizarre to me, the left is really just telling us is that they don't trust the American people. They don't trust the American voter. And they knew they were going to lose this case. I think what Keith Olbermann is upset about is that some of the most liberal members of this Supreme Court sided with the main holding, as Justice Barrett said, in her concurrence, because she wanted to make it clear that though the three liberals signed on, they wrote this long opinion saying what they didn't sign on to. They did sign on to the fact that the states had no role here, that Congress had to act before you could use the 14th Amendment and Section 3 specifically, because that is actually in the 14th Amendment. So again, this is a huge victory.
And
we're
going to have to cut it George and Sekulow, but that was what Amy Coney Barrett said, is that should be the takeaway for the American people. We'll be right back to talk about the political fallout next on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path. And now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. as leftists continue to melt down over the Supreme Court's unanimous opinion simply upholding the Constitution. We now turn to the political fallout for Super Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And by the way, you're going to want to tune in to the Salem News Channel. We will be having live coverage from 5 p.m. all the way until 2 a.m. So you will not want to miss that tomorrow night, when likely President Trump is going to cinch that GOP nomination. And so one of the silver linings for leftists and certainly the establishment Republicans has been that Nikki Haley actually won the DC primary. So this headline coming from CNN: Haley wins DC GOP primary. And these were the results from the AP. 62.9% of the swamp that went for Nikki Haley, but it was only about 1,200 votes. So joining me now to discuss Super Tuesday and that preview is Ryan Fournier. He is the founder of Students for Trump. So Ryan, I thought this was hilarious that Nikki Haley won the swamp and was actually bragging about it. I don't think she's going to win anything else tomorrow night on Super Tuesday.
It's absolutely pathetic as well to look at, the vote count there and consider that a win. 1,200 votes, Donald Trump near 700 votes, and then you say you win the swamp. The optics of that are not going to play in her favor, and it really goes to show, and I tweeted about this last night, when you look at what's going on in Washington, D.C., the Republicans who vote in Washington, D.C., most people who work in D.C. don't even live there. So the people that are voting there, these are rhinos, they're establishment figures. They've been there for a long time. That's why the numbers are so low. This is not indicative of anything to me except who is backing Nikki Haley. The Democrats, the rhinos, the establishment, those are the people doing it. And I think that people are starting to wake up and see that now.
Exactly. And so I think that President Trump will likely take that threshold in terms of delegates after tomorrow night. And the political fallout from the Supreme Court opinion as well. I mean, even leftist pundits are suggesting that with the Supreme Court's unanimous opinion, this is giving Trump a boost. There was some melting down from left-wing pundits yesterday when the Supreme Court signaled they were going to release that opinion, suggesting that the timing of this was terrible in terms of optics. And I'm like, well, the Supreme Court needed to issue this opinion because Colorado is voting tomorrow night, and the Republicans who want to vote for Trump on the ballot need to know if their vote is going to count. So sorry, leftists, your latest ploy to get Trump is kind of backfiring. Too bad.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw this in Illinois with that judge who, oh, and by the way, is a traffic court judge who handled Class A misdemeanors. She got onto a circuit bench, but her day job is handling those minor crimes, those minor misdemeanors. And she made a decision on a presidential election, right? I mean, this is an overreach if I've never seen it before in the history of my life, to see lawfare being used against a former sitting president in the midst of a presidential election where he's doing overwhelmingly well across the board. You look at 2016 and 2020 numbers, he's almost crushing those. You look at, the primary here, Super Tuesday, we have, I think, 15 states up, one territory. You look at California, that's a, winner take all state, 50% or more, he's got all the votes. He's going to dominate it. And I think that a lot of people see that. I think the Supreme Court saw the writing on the wall that if we don't act on this and something were to happen, right, if there were another situation like 2020 to occur, we do not want to be in the crosshairs. I think that they realize that what's happening against Trump right now, the timing is bad, the optics are bad, and the perception for the 9-to-5 American coming home every single night, not necessarily paying attention to Twitter or X or Facebook, come home, they watch the news, they see Trump's being removed from a ballot in Illinois, they see Trump's being removed from a ballot in Colorado. These are things that people start to get to concerned about, because then they start thinking, well, if they're doing all this to him, he must be the right guy for the job. So I think that the optics really did not play in their favor for the Democrats, of course. And now you're seeing, sort of the Supreme Court take it up and do the right thing. They really did do the right thing today. I mean, this was a civil issue. This was not a criminal matter. To have the Secretary of State remove the president from the ballot over this was absolutely ridiculous. So I 100% agree with the court.
Yeah, and interestingly, Amy Coney Barrett, in her concurrence, where some of the justice kind of squabbled over some of the precise legal issues, but they all affirmed the judgment. She said that affirmation that was unanimous should be the takeaway message to the American people, that the court was unanimous on this opinion. And I think that will probably have an effect for Donald Trump heading into Super Tuesday. But let's also talk about the main other issue that the exit polling, at least historically so far in the other primary states that have gone before, have suggested, which is the border issue. And this, of course, coming after the tragic and heinous murder of Laken Riley. And this is what Alejandro Mayorkas said on, of course, mainstream media and the left wing when he was actually trying to respond to this question, and they were trying to actually confront him with this. This is what he said. Watch this.
Should this man have been deported?
A few thoughts. First, Margaret, first and foremost, an absolute tragedy, and our hearts break for and our prayers are with the family, number one. Number two, and importantly, as a prosecutor, having prosecuted violent crime and other crimes for 12 years, one individual is responsible for the murder, and that is the murderer. And we work very closely with state and local law enforcement to ensure that individuals who pose a threat to public safety are indeed our highest priority for detention and removal.
But are you saying there that the federal government had been informed about this individual and the alleged crimes he had committed in those states? Because he could have been deported if that was the case. Was there a breakdown in the system?
So, Margaret, there are a number of cities around the country that have varying degrees of cooperation with the immigration authorities.
And the segment goes on, but Ryan Fournier, we're almost out of time in our segment, so I wanted to give you a chance to respond. I mean, Mayorkas he was reading his talking points, and this was just utter BS.
It's a complete disgrace, this administration and how they've handled this crisis. I was blessed enough to have a call yesterday with one of Laken's friends, and she told me about, how much this kid cared, how much she would give up for another person to help them succeed, right? She had a humble soul, and to hear that put tears in my eyes. And so I put out a tweet. We've been saying hashtag say her name because this administration owes it to that family. This illegal immigrant entered in 2022. This person has a violent record. He has killed a college-age student. Now, I'm, 28. I just graduated in 2019. I'm not too far off.
It's so sad, Ryan, and we're going to have to leave it there. But, this is going to continue to be an issue. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to MyPillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. Well, more political lawfare seeking a legal resolution. It was on Friday when journalist Steve Baker had to turn himself in to the FBI for his role of simply documenting and being a journalist on January 6th. And so the Daily Caller, the Federalist, and other, of course, conservative outlets are suggesting that this will have a chilling effect on reporters. Joining me now is Auron MacIntyre, who is a host at The Blaze. And in case you missed it, I had Steve Deace on my radio program this morning to talk about this. You can find that show at afr.net. So, Auron, for those who maybe haven't been following this particular story closely, but maybe they're familiar with Brandon Strack, some of the other journalists that were there at the Capitol on January 6th that have had to fight legal charges, what exactly happened in Steve Baker's case up till now?
Sure. So Steve Baker is currently a journalist with The Blaze, but he was an independent journalist during the events of January 6th, and he went ahead and, like any journalist, was there to document what was going on, taking pictures and writing about what was happening. He had no idea how events were going to unfold. No one did. But once things started happening, he went ahead and followed the crowd where they were going, and that included walking into the Capitol. Now, Steve was far from the only journalist, as you mentioned, who walked in there. However, there's been a consistent pattern that many regime journalists, people from places like the New York Times, have faced no problems with this. But people like Steve, especially who come from a more conservative bent, people who are going to have different narratives about what happened during January 6th, they have faced legal issues. And so as Steve has been in limbo, he ended up joining The Blaze, and it was hard not to notice that once he did so, the interest in the FBI and the DOJ in going ahead and persecuting him increased. And so Steve was required to go ahead and surrender himself to the FBI. He did so in Dallas. They went ahead and handcuffed him. They put him in leg chains and went ahead and put him before a judge here on Friday.
And he is, my understanding is he's only facing misdemeanor charges, which could have resulted in merely a summons to come before the court. And so Steve has posted on social media that this was just a humiliation tactic to actually go and have to turn himself in, go in front of a judge. And you mentioned a really interesting point, Auron, that some of these other journalists from left-leaning outlets like the New York Times and others that were also present just documenting on January 6th, not actually participating in those events, haven't been charged by the DOJ. So do you think that if Steve had ended up taking a job at, let's say, the New York Times or, MSNBC, that he wouldn't be facing these types of charges and this type of, as he puts it, humiliation?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely obvious. It's very clear what the intention is. The process is the punishment. They want to intimidate. They want to go ahead and make it clear that anyone who has an alternative understanding of what happened there, anybody who has an ability to look at the facts and set their own reporting, independent reporting or a conservative reporting, should not be allowed to do so. And they want to intimidate and punish people on the right who would go ahead and observe events like this, report on them, and provide an alternative to the mainstream media narrative. And so it's very clear, like you said, he's been charged with 4 misdemeanors. Now, The Blaze has come into possession of evidence, of video evidence from January 6th that seems to be exculpatory for Steve, shows that he was not involved in many of the actions that are alleged in these charges. But the court doesn't care. The DOJ doesn't care. The whole point of this is to go ahead and intimidate. If Steve had been part of Fox, if he had been part of the New York Times, he simply would not be in this position. But he works for a conservative paper. He shares information that is not considered part of the mainstream narrative. And so he needs to be punished and humiliated in front of everyone so no one speaks out against the regime again.
And that's the chilling effect. And I like how you include Fox in, the mainstream media, because like you, I mean, I don't even watch Fox anymore. I don't think that they're particularly, fair and balanced as they pretend. But interestingly, Steve Deace made the point on my radio show earlier that Steve Baker has an interesting truth-telling a part of his journalism. He's not one of these writers that's suggesting that everybody on January 6th should just walk and that everybody is totally innocent. He's actually parsing this not according to the leftists or some of the far right's narratives that it's either black or white, everybody's guilty or everybody's innocent. And so that truth-telling aspect to say, some people committed criminal acts and they should be punished accordingly, or at least charged accordingly. Everyone has, of course, the the presumption of innocence. But then, others obviously didn't have any criminal conduct, and that would, you would think, include journalists. And so it's that particular truth telling that goes against what the left is trying to paint of all conservatives, that they're suggesting that all conservatives stand for just allowing everyone to not suffer any consequences, even if there was criminal conduct or violence on January 6th. And that's why Steve Deace is saying that he believes that Steve Baker was targeted for that level of truth telling. Do you agree?
I mean, it's very clear that Steve Baker deserves credit for having that level of nuance and bringing that analysis. Unfortunately for him, I don't think that's going to be rewarded. I think Steve Deace is correct that they are attacking anyone involved in this. They're going to be bringing Steve Baker, as with many different January 6th people who are charged with crimes in relation to January 6th, in front of DC judges. They know that the juries and the judges there are going to be biased, that they're going to have a particular agenda, that they're willing to grind an axe and go after Trump or people who might be supportive of Trump, or people who might even not be supportive or have a particular bent, but simply are not falling in line with the narrative that they want from the media. And again, it's all about that chilling effect. If they can let anyone know that any amount of nuance is too much nuance, that no matter how clear or accurate or fair your reporting is, if you're not with one of the approved outlets, you simply don't count as a journalist. If you can't be controlled, if you're not part of that controlled opposition, you need to be silenced, no matter how truthful you are, no matter how careful you are with your reporting. That's the message they're trying to send. It's a terrifying message to have in a society that is supposed to have a free press. It's very clear what's happening here.
It reminds me of James O'Keefe as well, that, the left wanted to say that he wasn't even a journalist because he wasn't part of one of their preferred journalistic outlets. And so according to them, journalists can't be independent. They can't be conservative. They can't be just fact finders and truth tellers. And so this does absolutely put a chilling effect on not only freedom of the press, but free speech. And so these are reasons, Auron, also why I think that people like you and I, and also Steve Deace, supported Governor DeSantis, saying that he wanted to allow for pardons, but to look for them on a case-by-case basis so that we weren't just painting one narrative holistically. So we'll continue to follow this story. Really appreciate your time, Auron. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. Following the Dobbs opinion that overturned Roe versus Wade, the left is increasingly trying to find innovative ways to promote abortion access that they term as healthcare. So this coming from the Wall Street Journal, CVS and Walgreens are set to sell the abortion pill Mifepristone within weeks. The pharmacy chains received certification to sell the pill under last year's FDA guidelines. The Alliance Defending Freedom responded on social media, posting this: CVS and Walgreens Walgreens are recklessly pushing high-risk drugs onto women who are now left to perform their own chemical abortions alone at home without ever having visited a medical professional. This is appalling. Hashtag women deserve better. So one woman I know who does think that women absolutely deserve better, including unborn children, which include women, is Abby Johnson, who is the founder of And Then There Were None. Abby, how just reckless and traumatizing and dangerous is this that you'll now be able to get over-the-counter medical abortion pills to have at-home abortions? I mean, I thought we were kind of past this whole, hanger in the back alleyway kind of medical abortions that now the left seems to be pushing.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jenna. So, forever, for decades, the abortion industry has said, this is what we don't want. They've walked around with, hangers with slashes around them. This is what we don't want. We don't want women to be able to have at-home abortions. And now that's exactly what they're pushing. And let me be clear about what this is. This is not women going to doctors and seeing doctors for healthcare. This is women going online. There are over 70 places they can go online. They type in information. They can type in any name, any date of birth. It's not verified. Nobody is going to make sure that their ID matches the name they gave, that their date of birth is correct. They do not have to submit an ultrasound. Nobody's checking to make sure that the pregnancy is in the uterus and not in the fallopian tube, or that it's, not ectopic, to ensure safety that way. And they're not going to talk to a doctor. They're not going to talk to a nurse. They're going to get a response from somebody named Becky or Kelly or Elizabeth. And they're going to go through a PayPal link, and they're going to pay about $100 to get this prescription. They're going to take that prescription into a CVS or a Walgreens, and they're going to get the medication. They don't care how far along they are in the pregnancy. They don't care about their medical history. They're going to take these pills at home, many times alone, without any kind of medical supervision. They could be 18, 20, 22 weeks into the pregnancy. They could be delivering babies alive at home by themselves, watching their babies die in front of them, suffocate to death in front of them. This is inhumane. This is incredibly dangerous for women. I mean, of course, babies die every time, but psychologically, this is damaging for women, and physically, this is damaging for women.
And this just proves that the left is not interested in protecting women, or terming this as healthcare is completely false, not just a misnomer. So, what will be the result here of women who are having these chemical abortions at home when they are 22 weeks or beyond in their pregnancies, and they're not realizing that essentially they could be giving a live birth to a baby that isn't going to survive in that kind of trauma?
Yeah, we don't even know exactly what the psychological ramifications are going to be of this, just increased availability of medication abortion. But what I think we're going to see, Jenna, I think we're going to see increased suicidal ideation in women. I think we're going to see increased suicides. We're going to see increased eating disorders, anxiety, depression, self-mutilation. And then society is going to say, gosh, what is wrong with women? Why are we seeing, so many increased mental health disorders in women? And nobody's going to want to go back and go, oh, maybe it's because they've seen their dead babies floating around in toilets. Maybe it's because they held their babies in their arms as they were taking their last breath. Maybe it's because the Biden administration allowed these medication abortion pills to be essentially over the counter, behind the counter, and available to all of these women without any sort of physician care. Maybe that's it, right? But nobody wants to ever look back and say that abortion actually is harmful for women.
Yeah, no one wants to face the truth because this is just advancing a leftist agenda, which is state-funded abortion on demand, and they advocate even for partial birth abortion. I mean, this is not even what the Clinton era used to project, which was safe, legal, and rare. This certainly isn't rare. This is something that women can just obtain over the counter, as you said, so easily without even a medical consult. So, what can be done then, Abby Johnson, to fight this type of availability from CVS and Walgreens?
I mean, certainly, I think people need to be calling the CVS and Walgreens headquarters, letting them know of your disapproval. Let them know. You don't even have to be pro-life to disagree with this. I mean, anybody with a conscience, anybody with any sort of logical mind should be able to say this is dangerous, because even a pro-choice person could look at this. If you have any sort of teenage daughter, you could be looking at this and going, oh my gosh, this could be my teenager having access to these drugs without my knowledge. This sets up a safe haven for abusers, for their victims to be able to get these medications without, having to report. This is not good for America. We need to be calling, we need to be talking to people, we need to be talking to legislators about how we can rein this in. There are ways, but we just need to be getting creative and thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, and this is why the pro-life movement, Abby, is pro-women, truly pro-health, pro-children, and the full life from conception all the way till natural death. This is not just about pro-birth. This is about recognizing the implicit dangers. And I mean, I remember when pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens during the COVID pandemic refused to prescribe certain medications over the counter, even when you had a medical consult like ivermectin. And yet now we're seeing the absolute complete inversion of this, and a difference to say, oh, sure, it's fine to have this type of procedure at home, unsupervised by yourself. I mean, this is horrific. It's heinous. And I hope that there will be legislation around this, even in blue states. And the pro-life movement does need to stand up and say, we care about healthcare genuinely for women. We'll be right back. And finally tonight, it's no secret that the left continues to come after America's children, not only thinking that they own America's children, but also that they can queer America's children. So this brand new book that is co-authored by James Lindsay and Logan Lancing is called The Queering of the American Child: How a New School Religious Cult Poisons the Minds and Bodies of Normal Kids. So that co-author, James Lindsay, who is also part of New Discourses, joins me now. And James, this is so timely. It's so important. What does this book reveal?
Well, it reveals queer theory and what it is and how it came to be and how it got to be in our schools, which, as it turns out, parents are noticing, grandparents are noticing, teachers are noticing all over the country that queer theory is in the schools, that it's being delivered to our kids, not just through schooling, but through education and also medicine. But they don't know what it is. They don't know where it came from. And this book is designed to give them a very accessible, reader-friendly guide to understanding what this cult ideology really is.
And when you say queer theory, I think a lot of people will be familiar with like CRT or critical race theory and some of these other theories that have their origins in Marxism. So let's unpack that a little bit, because you're probably the most brilliant person I know in actually explaining that succinctly.
Yeah, well, that's what this is. Queer theory is really, it should be called queer Marxism to be more accurate. It's just like CRT. CRT takes the Marxist theory and it repackages it in terms of race and with where I guess where white supremacy is the big evil and whiteness is the form of bourgeois property that has to be overthrown. And with queer theory, you have the same idea. It's that some people said that they get to be normal and some ideas and behaviors are legitimate and others are not. And so they set up an oppressive system based on normalcy. So queer theory is a Marxist theory that opposes the idea of being normal and the idea of legitimacy itself. And that's in their own definitions. The definition of queer from the original literature as exposed in the book is given as whatever is opposed to the normal, the legitimate, and the dominant. That is their definition for it, not even ours.
Wow. And this just shows exactly how the left is trying to make everything about these oppressive systems. And it's similar, it seems like, with attempting to normalize or legitimize even pedophilia, for example, for saying, that this isn't something, it's maybe not a normal sexuality, but just being minor attracted, or the MIPs, where that used to be and should be classified as something that is deviant and it is a criminal behavior. Now the leftists are trying to normalize that under these types of theories that, those people are just misunderstood and they're oppressed.
Right. And so this book explains, as we say in the book, that queer theory is opposed to limiting principles on principles. So there is no stopping place. It's not about gay marriage. It's not about this or that. There's no stopping place when queer theory gets involved. It's not a civil rights movement. It is a radical movement that it doesn't matter whether it's, children, whether it's animals, whether it's, it's so disgusting to even talk about. There are no limits. Anything that's considered out of bounds is what queer theory supports by definition. So it will always do this. And it's important. And this book is designed to talk about how this is being brought into the education system to teach our children to think this way through the schools themselves at a profound level.
Wow. And this is so disgusting. And so for parents who have gone along with this and they almost have a view that if their child is in this queer spectrum, which, as you said, has no limiting principle, no real definition other than all of the out of bounds, why are parents going along with this just for some kind of, trophy child to say, oh, look, I'm getting woke points because my child is now in this category?
Yes, in some cases. And in other cases, it's because they think back to the parent who would disown their gay child and they want to prove that they're not like that, that they're the opposite of that they're more inclusive is the word. And in other cases, it's simply because they don't know. They think, for example, they think that their child is in the queer spectrum. That's not possible. If you look at the definition of queer, it says specifically, and this is from a guy named David Halperin, I'm not making it up, the definition of queer was written down in 1995. It literally says that it's based on no positive truth and no stable reality. It contrasts that. The first sentence of the paragraph defining queer begins with the words unlike gay identity, because it says that gay identities are rooted in reality, but queer identities are not. That means a lot of parents believe that their children can be queer, but that's not right. It's only possible to act queer. Their children are being brought into a religious and spiritual and political cult through queer theory that claims to describe how they actually are, but it's actually describing their politics and how they're being taught to act.
This is so disturbing, and I'm so grateful that you have co-authored this book. It's the queering of the American child. And James Lindsay, what's the takeaway message for how parents, if they think they have no other option besides to send their child to public institutions, which are government-funded schools, and I would call them indoctrination camps at this point, a lot of them. What is the parent to do who objects to queer theory but still sends their child to these state-funded and state-run institutions?
Yeah, near the end of the book, we discuss this exact topic. And the point is that what parents have to do is get as involved in their children's lives as possible. Their children need to know that they are loved, that they're accepted, that other people out there might try to lure them into thinking that that's not true or try to exploit weird feelings. And it's their responsibility and their need to come home and tell their parents when that happens, so the parents can get involved, understand what's happening, so it's not happening behind their backs, and protect them. But it all comes back at the very, very basis to the parents forming the strongest possible relationship, healthy relationship with their children, and protecting them that way.
And this just goes right back to parental rights and, of course, the design of the reality of the traditional family, that children are given by God to their parents, not to the state. We don't co-parent with the state. And as Proverbs says, train up a child in the way they should go. When they're older, they won't depart from it. Of course, parents need to be the number one adults that are involved in children's lives. They need to be responsible for their children and teaching them the measurable difference between right and wrong, good and evil. And in truth versus falsity. I mean, children are just so impressionable. And to think that they can be queer and they can gravitate to all of this, it's no wonder that the Marxist leftists are trying to take impressionable young minds and to try to cultivate this insane cultish doctrine in our kids. So parents, make sure you know what's going on at your kids' schools. That's all the time we have for Jenna Ellis tonight. You can always reach me and my team, Jenna at salemnewschannel.com.